This is a matchup where I really like the Miracles deck. Both of them are kind of playing a control game, whereas Lossett's deck not even hinting at playing an aggro. Not even. He's more of a control deck in this control matchup.
Yes, he is. And one of the things that I love when I take a look at Joe's deck list is I always want to see exactly what he's up to, because his deck list, he's always refining and tweaking this deck. For example, this week he's only got 1 Mystic Gate. Sometimes he has 2. This week he has a main deck Red Elemental Blast, but I have seen him have 2 of that. But instead, he looks like he's split it up.
He's a Red Blast, Pyro Blast.
Pyro Blast, sure. Why not? I believe him when he says that that's probably correct. So it's always fun to look at how he's kind of changed the deck around. Sometimes in the sideboard, you'll see Baneslayer Angel. Sometimes you won't. Doesn't look like he has it this particular weekend. What he does have, however, is a Scalding Tarn that's going to search for an island, and here's a Sensei's Divining Top. Macho with just a Grim Lavamancer. He picked up a Delver Secrets for the turn. You see the Tundra in his hand as well. He's also got a Bolt over there. So I think Joe's going to know what he's up against in just a moment. Grim Lavamancer off of a Volcanic Island, that kind of signifies blue-red Delver. But once the Tundra comes into play, that'll give Joe an idea of what he's up against.
It'll know what he's up against. And really in this matchup, as innocuous as it seems like, Sensei's Divining Top's one of the more important cards on the Miracle side. Basically, when I think about the Miracles deck, one of the strategies it's trying to do is just 1-for-1 and slowly outdraw its opponent. Divining Top's really core to that strategy.
Yeah, I mean, so Sensei's Divining Top is... Yeah, I'll say it. I think it's the best card in the deck.
Yeah, it certainly is one of... It's very scary. It has a sense of inevitability with it.
Even though Brainstorm, in my opinion, is the best card in Legacy, I think Sensei's Divining Top is the card that holds his deck together, because this is a wildly different deck when it has top versus when it doesn't.
Yeah, so Lossett there goes ahead and cracks Fetchland for basic planes. He is kind of doing a stifle check, more or less. No stifle on Macho's side.
He's going to spin his top right now. Again, he does have a Source of Plowshares in his hand right now, but he doesn't want to walk that into a daze.
Yeah, he has another Fetchland in hand. I think ideally he'd like to find a Brainstorm so he can queue up that Terminus from his hand and put it on top of the deck.
One of the fun things of watching Lossett play, too, is that he's pretty quick with his tops. And additionally, I always feel like I just learned something when I watch him play, because if you follow his stream, he's Oarsman on Moto. He's always playing this deck. I think the name of his stream is Miracle Tech. He just loves playing this deck. He'll dabble in some other stuff on occasion, but he absolutely loves working on this deck and playing it. And he does travel some pretty far lanes around the country to actually find time to play it. For example, every time the Open Series is in Seattle, I always find him there. Just coming to do battle. So,
and that's a fair number of miles away from Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually lives in like LA, like around that area. So even to see him here was a surprise to me. Now, a lot of times when you travel to Seattle, I know he's got family in the area. I don't know if he has family down here or not, but I was very surprised when I came in here and Shroud told me he was here. I was like, all right, maybe Joe's on the hunt for some points. He is in 8th place on the leaderboard after all.
Yeah, and those lands, oh man.
That's on purpose.
I'm a big fan.
Those are on purpose. Part of the reason that he plays those basics is because those are the lands that he first started playing Magic with, and so he uses those lands. Even though I make fun of him quite a bit, that they are white bordered and kind of gross looking, but he's been playing those ever since I met him many years ago. So Scalding Tarn's going to search up a Volcanic Island. You saw the Delver bite the dust from the Swords of Plowshares. So Macho is, as you mentioned, the aggressor in this matchup. He doesn't really have much of a choice. He has to be the aggressor here. And so Grim Lavamancer is going to hang back here and probably look to be activated in a little bit. But he's got to take Lossett from 17 to 0 as fast as he possibly can, because once Joe gets maybe the counterbalance lock going or is able to turn over a Terminus or entreat the Angels, the game ends pretty quickly.
All right, so we see a top, cards put back off top, now a crack of the fetch land.
Not too surprising to see the stifle check there with the way that he even actually tapped his Flooded Strand, kind of expecting a stifle. Maybe Joe wants to fight over this potentially? Not quite sure. He does have a Forcible in his hand. I'd be a little surprised if he has a little battle over that.
Lands are cool. They're not that cool. I mean, it's more like Macho doesn't have enough of a board presence to fight to that degree over the spell.
Yeah.
In this matchup, actually, Force of Will is a pretty weak card for Lossett. Both decks are playing fair, so the idea of 2 for winning yourself just for Force of Will is not completely appealing. I think if he can find that Brainstorm, we'll probably see the Terminus go on top of the deck. We might even see the Force of Will join it there.
I actually like Joe's play there. He plays the Sensei's Divine Top and immediately draws a card to put a land into play, knowing that that was there the entire time. So Lavamancer is going to go active. Going to deal Lossett 2. Put him down to 14 here. It's funny, too. We look at this Miracles deck as a control deck. most of the time when I think of control decks, I think of, let's take, for example, Esper in Standard.
Right.
That's a deck that has, I don't know how many lands you play. 26.
27.
Yeah, a lot of people play 27. I prefer 27 lands in that deck. I think the minute you can play is 26. Lossett's deck has 23 and a bunch of fetch lands, too. So it's not like he has a ton of mana producers in his deck. But for Legacy, a control deck really is like 22 or 23 lands. As here's a Brainstorm that's going to be countered by a Spell Pierce. And now, it looks like Macho has the land afterward to play post Brainstorm that has been Spell Pierce. He's going to start by attacking here for 1, unless that's going to go down to 13. And now there's a Wasteland, and you've seen that Joe has carefully searched out basics on purpose. That's actually part of the appeal of the Miracles deck, is that you get to play a lot of basic lands.
Yeah, mainly a 2-color deck. Interestingly enough, the red in Miracles, at least in his main deck, is just for the red blast and the pyroblast. Those are the only red cards in the main of blue, white, red Miracles.
Lossett going to play a Flooded Strand here. And just simply pass the turn back with the ability to spin a top and then, crack the fetch and get a new spin. Here's a Lightning Bolt that's going to go upstairs. We'll see if Lossett has any interest in letting this resolve. It will take him down from 13 to 10.
Yeah, and Lossett's done a pretty good job of just managing to play around, to take care of Macho's threats. This Grim Lavamancer has done a lot of work, and Lightning Bolt's going to supplement it. This puts Lossett down to 10. At some point here, he's going to have to find a way to deal with the Grim Lavamancers. You see, there's still that Terminus floating around in his hand. His hand has actually gotten pretty weak, which, he has this Force of Will, he has this Terminus. Which that's something I noticed with Miracles. They really do, as it is with the name of the deck, it plays off the top of the deck quite a bit. So its hand oftentimes is not all that impressive.
Which is another weird thing for a control deck, right?
Yeah.
You think of a control deck, wow, he has so many cards in the hand. He just resolved Sphinx's Revelation, or, back in the day, I'll date myself a little bit here, Psychotog decks with Factor Fiction and Deep Analysis. They were all about card quantity, not so much about card quality. And that's like the direct opposite here with Miracles.
Yeah, and I really like that style with Miracles. It's all about the top decks and just using this is a deck that abuses fetch lands.
Yeah. Would you say it's the best fetch land deck? That's a weird thing to say.
Omnitel's a pretty good fetch land deck.
Yeah, sure, you can put away the garbage.
Yeah, in a deck where the difference between the good cards and the bad cards is so high, I would say. But it's among the best best brainstorming fetch land decks.
You see a Jace the Mind Sculptor, among others, here for Joe. I think, as you mentioned a little while ago, I think the one card he's looking for right now is just a Brainstorm. Yeah, to be able to put that Terminus back.
To be fair, the Force of Will is becoming a real card. I don't think any deck likes to hardcast Force of Wills as much as Miracles does. That deck hardcasts Force of Will a lot.
So you see Lossett is actually looking at, there's a Brainstorm in the middle, there's a Jace, looks like it's going to go third to the bottom, and there's a Treat the Angels actually on top. I think the question that Joe's asking himself is, do I draw this in Treat and make creatures now, or do I wait? Do I cast a Vendilion to try to push this through? I think he's got some real options here.
Yeah, we're still on unstep. He's in a Vendilion. Question is who he'll target with the Vendilion.
The other question is, this is going to resolve.
Yeah, is it going to resolve? You have things going to get dazed. This is one of the few chances that Macho's going to have to get value off this daze.
You have to imagine that Joe knows that he can daze too, right?
I don't think Joe's too shocked this is not resolving.
Yeah. He has the opportunity to just run this into that. I think Joe's thought process here is, okay, I'm going to entreat now, and what I can do with this entreat is I can cast this, and I can fight with my Force of Will and start the race.
The entreat, unfortunately, is going to crash into a Spell Pierce.
Yeah, that's the big problem. And he is going to turn this over now.
So unless he entreats for 0 to play around Spell Pierce, which doesn't seem very good.
I think it's unlikely that will occur.
No, the actual question is whether you'd entreat for 1 or 2 here to play around the daze. Yeah. And he chooses not to, but there's no way to play around the Spell Pierce.
Yep. And I think part of the reason that Joe actually did that this turn is because it's pretty easy for him to say, okay, I don't think that you have counter magic in your hand, for example, because there's a real opportunity for you to just have Swords Bolt in this situation, or and there's something else, some collection of cards, True Name Nemesis, sure, let's throw that out there too. It's a very realistic possibility that you just don't have Force of Will plus blue card or Spell Pierce. Now, as it turns out, Macho does, so Entreat will get countered.
Now, what I like is how much Lossett is setting this up. So he cast a Vendilion Click, that got countered. He cast Entreat the Angels, that got countered. But that's not really the prize card. This is all I feel like a long line to set up this Jace to resolve. If you could resolve one of those 3 spells, Jace is the one you want.
I could see that. He is getting a little bit low now. He's at 7, and Grim Lavamancer is whittling away his life total, but 7's not 0. And here's a Brainstorm. He's going to cast that, looks like right now. Almost showed Force of Will.
Yeah, if he waits one more turn, Macho's going to be able to hard cast that Force of Will at the Jace.
Looks like Lossett may have picked up a Tundra there among his lands. Not entirely sure. Not sure if it's a basic or not, because he needs a blue source to be able to cast the Jace. He's going to rearrange his library as such that I believe he's going to put Terminus on top with the ability to cast that either with his top or next turn. And there's an island.
Terminus on top. Under that, he put the, I believe, a fetch land. And not even going to go for the Jace. Letting himself go down to 5.
Some patience, that's for sure.
Yeah, there is danger that now Macho can hardcast Force of Will at the Jace.
Yeah.
But I think in Lossett's situation, he's not worried about resolving the Jace with any sort of time. The card he wants to fight over is this Terminus that's on top of his deck.
Yeah. And I'm actually kind of with you now, because here is the Terminus, right? Like, I think there's a real chance that this could Force a Will. And
right.
As you kind of mentioned, it may have been a setup for Jace all along, because now Force of Will gets hard cast. Terminus is probably going to get countered. I'd be surprised if Joe fought over this, because he has a Force of Will of his own with a Jace in his hand. His life total is getting pretty low, to be fair.
Yeah, his life total's low here. It would go to 4. It's going to drop by 1 no matter which way he plays it, so he's basically at 4 either if he forces or takes 1 off the Grim Lavamancer. I mean, the question is whether or not he has the option here to untap Jace, bounce, Grim Lavamancer, play top go. And that's a pretty strong line.
That's a good turn. That's definitely a good turn.
My guess is that he'll just go ahead and take that.
He's probably scared of running Bolt or something of that nature, which is the only thing he needs to be scared of right now, because he doesn't have to really be too scared of creatures. So Force Will is going to counter Terminus. He's going to go down to 4, as you did mention. He's still going to have a Force Will in his hand, which is actually pretty good. And then there is the top. So Lossett going to rearrange his mana. He will play a Jace. You have to imagine that this resolves, which it will. He's going to bounce that Grim Lavamancer. Let's see where he puts the die here. Yep, down to 2, says get that thing out of here. And I want to see if he's going to play the top, because he's probably not scared of Daze. And he will play this, and then he's going to pass the turn back over to Macho, who has a land, a Grim Lavamancer, and now a Wasteland. And again, you got to love the way that Lossett has played out his lands this game and the way that he has searched for them. And again, this is part of the appeal of Miracles, the fact that you do get to play basics in your deck and basically dodge Wasteland. He's got 4 islands, 2 plains, and a mountain. Yes, he does have non-basics and 3 tundras and a flooded strand, along with 2 copies of Caracas and a Mystic Gate. But the fact that he's got so many fetch lands, he can keep searching out basics, and now he looks like he's going to try to turn the corner here.
Yeah, so Jace comes down. Yeah, it's recast here. He just has to watch out for his own life total.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. He's going to bounce the Grim Lavamancer again. Again, this isn't the most beautiful use of Jace, but what he can do now is he can Force of Will the Grim Lavamancer. See, a Stoneforge Mystic was picked up this turn. Will he actually Force of Will this? He's going to Force of Will it immediately.
He's going to have to, but that draw from Macho may give him some problems. Remember, he can't actually unsummon the Stoneforge this time.
Yeah. This was a really good draw here from Macho, able to Stoneforge Mystic. Going to search up an equipment. The options for equipment here are Batterskull and Umezawa's Jitte, pretty much the industry standard nowadays. We'll go get the old Batterskull. And now Lossett's got one more thing to worry about. He's got to sense some weakness that the last card in Macho's hand's not very good. But now he's just got to think, okay, I've got to deal with Stoneforge and I have to deal with Batterskull. If I can do those things, I'm probably good to go. You see Joe takes a look at the graveyard. Probably looking to see a number of lightning bolts that have been cast.
Yeah, I think it's just the 1.
Yeah, I think Macho's drawing to 3 of them. Grim Lavamancer actually did a lot of work this game.
Yeah, Grim Lavamancer was very good. Remember, there's not actually much life gain at all in Joe's deck. He can swords his own creatures, which do not have very much power.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
I don't know how. To be fair, I'm sure it's come up for him. I'm not sure how much, but yeah, that's definitely a line that he can take.
If he can get full control, like Jace with Jace Fate Sealing, this isn't going to matter. If he can get a counter top lock going, it's not going to matter.
Yeah. All right. He's brainstorming now. There's a counter spell. Looks like a Force of Will and a mystery card.
Yeah, I believe the mystery card's a land, so he has no way to defend this Jace at the moment.
Yikes. Now, one of the things, too, if you've never seen Miracles in action with Brainstorm and Top in play, so what you can do is you get the Brainstorm, you draw 3, and then you put 2 back, and then if you spin Top, you actually get to see a new card. The third card down will actually be a new card. So he actually gets to see a lot of cards with this interaction, which is really cool, but he needs to find answers to this problem. And I'm not sure if it's so much the Stoneforge that's the problem or if it's the Batterskull at this point.
I mean, if he can keep the Jace around, things are probably fine. But the Jace is under a lot of pressure right now, just from Jace, Stoneforge turning sideways and killing the Jace.
Yeah.
He does have a counterbalance to go with his Divine Top, so the lock is there. He just has to clean up the board.
And we know how good the lock is against blue, white, red Delver. Really, really powerful stuff. As he does put 2 cards back here. He's going to play, it looks like a Tundra, knowing that that's going to get blown up, so you know he's definitely going to tap that for mana. This is a counterbalance.
And the card he left on top is what is it that he left on top? He left Force of Will on top.
I think he left Force of
Because
Will
it's a
on top.
5 for Batterskull. That's really, I like that.
Yeah. He's going to spin now. Looks like he's going to rearrange here. And I like this a lot, the ability to leave Force of Will on top of his deck for the Batterskull, as you did mention, because now it kind of puts Macho, depending on what he draws, a rock in a hard place, right? Because he would like to just put the Batterskull in via Stoneforge Mystic.
Right.
But if he does that, that means that Jace gets to go active for 1 more turn. So I wouldn't be surprised to actually see him hard cast Batterskull.
And you talked about how you can see 1 card deeper here. At that point was driven home. That card, 1 card deeper when he spun the top, was a replacement Jace.
Nice.
So, like I said, he has the control, he has the lock. He doesn't have the board under control. I think second Jace should be able to do that for him.
I think he says, how many cards do you have? I think you have to attack it. I know you want to put that Batterskull in for free, but I think you have to attack.
Yeah, every time you don't kill Jace, it's another brainstorm.
Yeah. So there goes the Mind Sculptor. And now, will he actually hardcast Batterskull? That's the big question here. You see him rearranging his mana.
Oh, he's going to go for it. Oh, this is going to be great. I like that Tyler Macho's hand is 2 5-mana spells, and Joe Lossett left a Force of Will on top of his deck. How great is that?
It's tough here. Do you cast Batterskull or not? It's really, really tough, because I can definitely see a reason not to cast Batterskull. And now, Macho says, all right, let me see your graveyard. Let me see how many forces you've cast. The answer is 1.
I mean, there's the rock and hard play situation going in here, because if he doesn't cast it, Joe Lossett is most likely going to rearrange, cast Jace, unsummon Stoneforge Mystic, say go, and then basically put the Force of Will back on top of his deck.
Yep. He's going to spin here. We'll see what he wants to draw here.
I would think it's Jace.
It's very, it's almost unfair. It's so easy for us to say, yeah, you draw Jace, you leave Force on top, and then you move forward accordingly. It's so easy.
Oh yeah, we know what Tyler Macho's hand is. I mean, his hand is 2 spells that cost 5. I think I'd like Force of Will on top.
Why would you ever draw Force of Will here? But it looks like he will draw Jace. He does have counterspell in his hand and actually force through some stuff as well. So
Tyler let Joe Lossett keep the Tundra.
Bit of a misstep there, I think.
Oh wow, what? Oh gosh, check counterbalance. That's a
trigger, Mr. Lossett.
Well, is he gonna let the cat? Yeah, he's gonna.
I have Force of Will, thank you, sir.
Didn't even have to rearrange for it. It was. I predicted your move.
Yeah, and I also get to leave Counterspell open too.
Yes,
it's
good,
a beautiful
right?
turn. It's an absolutely beautiful turn. He's going to bounce Stoneforge Mystic. He's working his way, taking control of this game. Now everything's off of the table.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what Miracles wants to get every game. Your opponent has no non-lands in play. You have a counterbalance, a Divining Top, and a Jace. And a counterspell up in hand. Great, excellent.
The draw of Days that turn might seem pretty bad, but it's actually much better than it looks because he actually gets to counter the counter.
The counter.
Yeah.
With it. Whoa.
So that's way better than it actually looks there. Days is pretty bad for most of this game, but in that situation, it's actually pretty good. Lossett could have tried to spin top to try to find it too, but he knows 2 of the cards on top of his deck. He's got a Force of Will at top, and then the 3rd card is a mystery.
Well, if he spins, yeah, I guess he has 2 mana, so he could spin to try it. Yeah, he doesn't know about Days.
Yeah.
There's no reason. He knows the last card is Batterskull, so he's playing around 1 card.
Yeah. I mean, he has 1 opportunity to draw Days or Force Will or something like that. Spell Pierce, what have you. If he doesn't draw it on that turn, Counterspell takes care of Stoneforge. I think he's probably good to go. I guess there's a window for True Name to slide in there that actually would be pretty good, but...
Yeah, Macho once again lets Joe have that Tundra. So, and that might be that Macho just feels that his lands are more important than Lossett's.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me right now. Lossett, will he spin top?
But Macho's running out of outs here. Remember that even the fact that Joe's at 4, counter top always can counter 1 drops. So the lightning bolts don't do much anymore.
He's going to spin top on his upkeep. Does not want to draw that card. It looks like maybe the 3rd card down. It's another Force of Will. Wow, okay.
Yes.
Opting to spin the top with the basic as opposed to Tundra. Let's keep that in mind as well. That's a little bit interesting to me, but Macho has shown that he's not willing to actually...
yeah, I don't know how much it... I'm trying to wonder what would matter. Why...
No way this is resolving.
Well, there's a top in the top 3 cards of Lossette's deck.
Well, I think what Joe wants to do here is he wants to actually be able to hardcast Force of Will on the Stoneforge Mystic, and then so what he can do here is he can draw a card with top, he draws a copy of Force of Will, and then he counters the Brainstorm.
Because the top reveals itself.
That's what I think you'd want to do. Now, there's also, a possibility for a different line of play here.
So the top card of his deck is Force of Will. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right, he's going to go ahead and let Brainstorm resolve.
It's a little surprising.
A little. I mean, when you're in that seat, right, do you actually care about Brainstorm? You only care about the cards that Brainstorm draws, and not many of them are very threatening.
Brainstorm's so good, I just want to counter it.
I mean, you don't counter the card draw, you counter the cards it draws.
Yeah. And this is why I don't ever play Brainstorm or counter spells, man. I see a Brainstorm, I want to counter
that's a good card. I don't want you to do something good.
No, that's a good card that can fight other good cards. I don't think so.
The thing is, there are very few cards in Macho's deck that matter right now.
That's definitely true.
So Lossett can focus on just countering those.
That Spell Pierce is actually a pretty big draw there for Macho. There's Stoneforge. Joe, yep, he's going to try again. Spell Pierce is going to stop this again.
And no, this time Joe's going to counter.
Yeah. So now the one's going to go on top. He'll turn this over, counter your Spell Pierce. So that goes away, and now Force of Will is going to resolve. That's going to go away. And now maybe he has cleared things up here, because Macho gets to play Numazawa Shite, but that card couldn't matter any less. And it's funny because all of this may have happened because he has not used one of those Wastelands on a Tundra.
That's certainly true. He's given Lossett that extra mana.
Over the past couple of turns,
Lossett's tapped out every turn.
Yeah. And Macho has had 2 Wastelands in play. To be fair, Macho has used a lot of his mana, but you have to imagine that if Joe was a little bit more constricted on mana, we might be looking at a different game here.
Well, looking at this turn, for example, Macho does have an extra land source that he hasn't used. And realizing now, okay, now he wastes the Tundra. It may be a little late, though, as there's counter top Jace in play for Joe and no real action for Macho.
Joe knows the last card in Macho's hand. It's a copy of Batter Skull. Joe says, let's do a little brainstorming. He draws a top. 2 other cards coming for him. It looks like he's gotten some firm control over this game. Venser among the cards that he has found. We'll see how he wants to reset the top of his deck, which of course matters because of counterbalance being there.
Well, Venser's a good generic answer to anything Macho could do. Remember, it can bring a spell back to hand or return a permanent. So spell or permanent, if Macho has a draw, Joe Lossett has an answer.
Yeah, he looks like he's left a Force of Will within the top couple cards of his deck. Scalding Tarn the draw here for Macho. See if he's going to try to deploy this Batter Skull. I think he's almost left with no choice.
Hoping that Lossett does not have a counter spell or a Force of Will on top of his deck.
Yep. The funny thing is that Macho actually saw Force of Will get cast from Lossett, so you have to wonder, well, do you have another one in there? And the answer is yes. Looks like he also has the Swords of Plowshares there too.
Now, at this point, if you're Macho, the question is, I guess, how long do you want to keep playing this game? What cards could you actually be drawing to? And, I mean, I'm thinking cards like Vendilion Click.
I mean, the cards that Macho can draw to in this situation, he's got one Vendilion Click, he's got 2 copies of True Name Nemesis, and there's not even a guarantee that those are going to win the game. At this point, I think you can say that Lightning Bolt is no longer an out.
Right.
I don't think Joe's going to allow himself to lose to that card as he plays another Sensei's Divining Top now. Also, Joe's going to play the game very patiently as he's starting to Fate Seal here with Jace. And he's not, he's not like just putting Venser into play, say, oh, bounce your GT, get myself a clock in play. He's going to play it really, really slow because he doesn't have a reason not to. He wants to make sure that all the windows are closed.
Well, Venser's not there for attacking. It's not there for winning the game.
That's true.
It's there as a catch-all. It can stop any spell or any permanent.
Yeah. So Macho does sacrifice the fetch line here to basically counteract the Fate Seal.
The cards Lossett is going to be looking for are Counter Spell, so it can take care of, well, anything. Also, Terminus, in case Macho resolves a True Name Nemesis. He already has Swords to Plowshares in case Macho resolves a different creature, be it a Stoneforge Mystic or a Vendilion Click.
Looks like Macho actually picked up a copy of Vendilion Click for his draw step here. Now, we do know Lossett has the Swords to Plowshares either on the top of his deck or in his hand, so that will not be that big of an issue. As all Lossett is doing right now, for those of you guys who are kind of new to Miracles, all he's doing right now is making sure that all the windows are closed so that Macho can do nothing to win the game.
Yeah, you make a checklist in your head of ways your opponent can win and slowly check off each one.
Yep. Taking a look at the top card now.
And to play around cards like Vendilion Click, what Lossett will try to do is keep his best cards on the top of his deck as opposed to in his hand.
Looks like he's going to play another top here, so there's 3 tops in play. So 1 mana spells, those are not resolving. And now we're going to see the Vendilion Click, I believe. And I think Lossett's going to be okay with this happening because he has the Swords of Plowshares in his hand.
You can go ahead and Swords that. It will be annoying that the Vendilion Click gets a card from his hand, but not terrible. Lossett has 3 Divining Tops in play, which means that no one mana spell is safe anymore for Macho. It's like a one-sided Chalice of the Void in play, you could say.
Looks like Counterbalance Trigger is going to be placed on the stack here. I think part of what Joe's doing is he's reorganizing the top cards of his library. He wants to see if he finds a 3, and it looks like he does. So
he finds his own
Click of his own.
Click.
He's found his clock now.
I mean, his clock was already in play. His clock was the Planeswalker.
Yeah, that's true. And see, this is what we talked about when we said that Lightning Bolt's no longer an out. Lossett actually let him draw 1.
All right, so Macho feels the walls closing in, is going to go ahead and try that Batterskull. And top 3 cards. Nope, there's a 5. Last card in his hand is a Bolt. That's a 1. Well, there's 3 tops, so that's never resolving. And especially considering the pacing of the game, Macho said, all right.
That's exactly it. You know, he sees, okay, I am fully locked out of the game. I have a Lightning Bolt. There's no chance of that resolving. And Joe Lossett is going to win game number 1 here. Blue, White, Red Miracles up a game over Blue, White, Red Delver. That is really a clinic on how to kind of balance your life total, balance your resources, get all of the mileage you can out of your cards, establish the lock, close all the windows, and close out the game. Yeah,
well played once again by Joe Lossett. You saw what I thought was really great was the patience with which he responded to the Grim Lobomancer.
Yeah.
He let the turn 1 Grim Lobomancer deal, what was it, 8 damage to him?
It felt like more than that.
Maybe 8 off activations.
Yeah, it felt like it was way more than that. I don't know how much that thing dealt. Maybe, I wouldn't be surprised if it was double figures that thing dealt, but I'm with you. Just, he could have panicked. Swords that or dig for swords.
It's dealing 8 damage to me. I gotta kill it.
Yeah, no panic whatsoever.
8's not 20,
that's why you're a math teacher. 8 is not 20.
Yeah, 8 damage is fine. Remember, the life total is a resource.
See, I like to take the life total down. I don't like to use them.
You have 19 free life points to give away.
In some instances, more
use
than
them
that.
As you will.
We'll take a look at the sideboards here. We're going to start with Tyler Macho again. He's playing Blue, White, Red Delver. He's got a Relic of Progenitus, 2 Surgical Extractions, a Rest in Peace, a Venser Shaper Savant, 2 Flusterstorms, a Swan Song, a Force of Will, an Echoing Truth, 2 Diverts, a Wear and Tear, an Engineer Explosives, a True Name Nemesis. This is pretty much the standard nowadays for Legacy decks. A lot of 1-0s and 2-0s, especially when you have Brainstorms, Ponders, and Fetch Lands. Cards I like here, I like Wear and Tear to get yourself out from underneath the counterbalance lock. Echoing Truth is okay. Swan Song is okay. An additional Force of Will. Even though you don't really like Force of Will in fair matchups, I think that Force of Will might be important here for Macho to force some of the cards through.
Yeah, I specifically like, Swan Song because it counters cards like Counterbalance.
Is there anything here that really stands out to you, like, as a card where it's just like, well, this is just the complete nuts to bring it against this deck? I don't see one of those cards.
Miracles plays a lot of things that are just generic answers. Counterbalance is an answer to, cards of a specific mana cost. So it's really hard to have a card that is just a straight trump to them. I think cards like Venser, Shaper, Savant are very good in this matchup.
Okay.
It's hard for Lossett to cough up a 4 to counter it. It's instant speed. It can knock a Jace or a Counterbalance off the table. So cards like that I think are strong. Is there one card tuned for this matchup? No, not really.
On Lossett's side, what do you see?
Well, on Lossett's side, he just needs to control the creatures, control the burn. He has another Pyroblast and another Red Blast, which should seemingly help in the matchup. It'll help him win the counter wars. Spell Snare is in the deck. I do not know. I don't know how many 2s are actually there to snare.
2 mana spells? There's 3 copies of Stoneforge. There's Njite, which obviously doesn't matter very much. There's half of Wear and Tear. That's really about it.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled about that. I would say the red blasts seem like the most obvious inclusion. Outside of that, I think we might see just kind of an encore of game 1 here.
So here's a question for you. You're Tyler Macho. You just played a marathon affair. Lost it, unfortunately. What do you do in game 2? What's your game plan here? Because a lot of the time with this deck, your game plan is to, okay, I'm going to play a turn 1 Delver, I'm going to flip it, and then I'm going to kind of deny your mana and get the job done. You'll probably stabilize around, a little bit of life, but True Nemesis and Lightning Bolt can clean stuff up. It doesn't seem like that actually happens in this matchup, though.
When I play a deck like that, I kind of try to number crunch it. Like, you need to force Joe to have it. You need to make plays that force Joe to have 1 or maybe 2 things to answer what you're doing. And you want to make it, so that he's under 50% to have it. Like, make plays where it's unlikely that he can answer them. Force him to have the spell snare. Force him to have the counterbalance in a situation.
Well, there is a turn 1 Delver, so this is the plan all along. This is what the deck's namesake, this is what the deck tries to do. Play this, disrupt your mana with a card like Daze, which is going to counter to the top, disrupt with Wasteland, disrupt with Stifle.
Right, certainly dazing top is a great way to start the match.
He's going to flip over Delver right away. Forcible is going to go to the grip. He's got some more permission. He's got another Dazed as Macho. He's attacking for 3, so immediately Lossette's under the gun.
Yeah, so Losette's on the back foot here. He didn't have the Divining Top, which, as we said before, is the best card in the matchup. If Macho can just keep Lossett off, I mean, he's going for the denial plan, which is pretty standard to Delver decks. Daze the first spell, Wasteland the lands, Stifle the fetch lands.
Now, the interesting thing is, by trying to move it on the Delver plan, it's funny because Lossett has 4 swords. He's got Terminus, and then he's got those blasts. 2 in his main deck, 1 elemental blast, 1 pyro blast, and he's got more in his sideboard. So realistically, it's actually hard to try to just, use a Delver plan because he's got so many spot removal spells for it. You see a pyro blast in his hand right now. He doesn't have the red mana, it looks like. This is going to get dazed here. So it's tough to actually use the Delver game plan to get the job done, but Macho's off to a really nice start with it so far.
Well, the way you defend against Pyroblasts is you stifle his fetch lands. Lossett doesn't actually play very many red mana sources. He probably has to fetch for them. He plays 1 mountain, 1 volcanic island, and that's it.
Wear tear the draw here for Joe, and he does have Flooded Strands, so you mentioned. Maybe you got to fight over the fetch lands instead.
If you suspect red blasts, absolutely.
Well, if you're familiar with Joe's deck, you suspect it.
Yeah, just 2 red blasts in the main, 2 more in the board.
Yeah, you're gonna sacrifice that? Nope.
Stifle that away. So he can, of course, red blast the stifle, but that somewhat defeats the purpose.
Well, I mean, he doesn't have the red mana to even be able to do that. So.
Right, never mind. He doesn't have red mana, so it's just going to work. And Macho is having all the denial cards here. Double Daze. He had the Stifle for the fetch land. He even had a Spell Pierce to back up that Stifle.
Yeah. This is again, the mana denial plan is, it's interesting because it seems like it's very rare that it's actually going to work against this deck. Like the Delver mana denial, counter your stuff, just try to get you dead plan. It's not a plan that works against Miracles a lot. Like if you watch Michael Major's match against Philip Braverman, Majors was just like, okay, I kind of want to try to aggro you out, but you're going to one for one my threats into the ground, and that's fine because it's not realistic for my Delver to actually get the job done. But with Macho's draw this game, I actually think this plan is the best that he's got to try to win.
All right, so see on end step, Lossette's going to go for a Vendilion click.
This is during the attack.
During the attack.
Yep.
I imagine we're going to see the Force of Will here. Macho is just playing the Protect the Delver.
I mean, he's priced in on this, right?
Yeah.
He can't do anything else, I don't think.
But this is why, one of the strengths of all these Delver strategies, everything he's doing is just generically good against cards. Like, he's not letting Lossett play right now.
Yeah.
He has countered or stifled everything.
Now, let's not forget, again, Joe has plenty of cards he can draw to get himself out of this situation. He is taking a lot of damage as he's going to play a Tundra here. Opens himself up to Wasteland a little bit. There are plenty of cards that he can find to get himself out of the situation. One Swords to Plowshare kind of just makes it okay.
Yeah, Tyler's putting everything on this one creature.
Terminus is a good card to turn over. Joe's going to try to resolve a counterbalance here. You see Macho staring at a Grim Lavamancer. Wear and Tear, too.
Yeah, so he can wear tear here. So he's going to go ahead and attempt to tear the counterbalance.
It works. Basic Island. Basic Island was the card turned up from the counterbalance. Now there's a Wasteland. In for 3 we go.
Yeah, puts Lossett down to 4. We're going to see, I think we're going to see Macho be more aggressive with the Wasteland this time.
I would be if I was him. In this situation.
You've done everything else to take all of Lossett's lands
Joe's
and
just
spells.
Pack it up. Jeez. The Delver draw, again, the Delver draw isn't a draw that gets there a lot, but, I mean, that was almost a perfect Delver draw. That draw
he actually countered or stifled everything.
Yeah, that draw beats almost any deck. That's part of the appeal to this deck, where he gets to tempo him out the entire time. Lossett didn't even get to do anything that game.
Nope. Delver's good that way. You make a 3-2 on turn 1. This is why blue getting Wild Nikado is way scarier than green getting Wild Nikado.
Yeah.
It's because they play Wild Nikado, and then they don't let you play.
Yep.
Green gets Wild Nikado, and then they play 2 more Wild Nikados, which is not nearly as scary.
I love to look at the history of Delver Secrets, too. Remember, man, Innistrad wasn't that long ago. And when, you know, that card, were there, like, any words about that card when it was spoiled? You know, there are a lot of cards to talk about in Innistrad for standard and stuff like that.
Yeah, there were some people were into it right away.
But this wasn't the thing where you see that card and you just go, oh my God, that is a giant error. You can't do that. You can't have this thing be a card. I don't think anyone looked at it that way.
I remember talking with Brian Cole about it, and he was one of the first people, the moment it was spoiled, said 3-2 flyer for 1. What are you doing? You guys can't do that. But I don't think it was taken particularly seriously at the time.
Yeah. I remember, you know, you look at that card and people look at it for limited and go, well, you don't have that many spells in your deck, so you can't really flip it. So it's not that big of a deal for constructed. There's not really a home because then like the illusions deck popped up and all that stuff. But it wasn't a deck that people really thought about as something, or card, excuse me, people really thought about as something that is, you know, really dangerous or scary, anything of that nature. So to actually just see this card really define multiple formats, define standard when it was alive, and defining legacy.
It's the blue Wild Nikado, right? I don't even think that's an overstatement of the card.
No, I don't think so at all. And thankfully, it's not dominating modern yet. That's why I said that. Eventually, people have tried.
I mean, as there's no brainstorm or ponder. That helps a lot to keep it down. But I have to imagine as spells get better, which they have a tendency to do, that Delver Secrets only gets better as you add more cards to a format. It doesn't get worse.
Lossett's going to be on the play here. He's taking a look at his opening hand. We've got about 13 minutes. And Joe has been known to get a draw or two. It does take a little while just to close out games with miracles. He's going to play an island. He's going to pass the turn back over to Macho. Both players are going to keep their 7 cards. Volcanic Eye on the draw here for Tyler. He's going to start, it looks like, with a fetch land. That's a Scalding Tarn. He's going to sacrifice that and go down to 19. We'll see exactly what dual land he wants to search for and if he'll be playing a creature on turn 1 or cantripping. Now that's really interesting. You see Lossett's hand right now. He's got the basic mountain in his hand.
And so he has the Pyroblast and the basic mountain. So he has much better insurance for taking care of Delver Secrets this time.
1 basic mountain in his deck. Again, his basics, 4 islands, 2 plains, 1 mountain. So that mountain seems like it's kind of out of place, but it does allow him to have a red source that dodges Wasteland. And if he does draw one like he has this game, pretty good. Here's a Ponder. That's going to resolve. Macho. Going to take a look at 3 cards. From Dealing Click, looks like a Delver and a Tundra are the 3 cards he's looking at. You see his hand, a couple copies of Force of Will.
What's interesting, he can keep the Delver, but it's not going to flip for a while if he keeps it.
It's not going to be a repeat performance that we saw last game, which was the Delver tempo game. But he's going to keep with the Ponder, draw the Delver, pass the turn back over to Lossett. Going to play the basic mountain, pass the turn back.
Yeah, exactly as you were saying there, basic mountain. Lossett's hand is not the greatest. He does have Entreat the Angels and Swords to Plowshares with no white in his hand, it looks.
Well, the thing is, Brainstorm kind of ties the room together, does it not?
Yeah, I mean, if Brainstorm finds a fetch land, he's great. If there's the chance he Brainstorm locks himself, which would be miserable.
That would be a disaster. Lossett going to take a draw here. There's your fetch land.
All right, game on.
See how he wants to use this because, again, he's playing against a deck that does have Stifle in it. It's this, this is part of the reason that Delver is such a good deck is because it puts you, again, in a rock and a hard place where, yeah, you do want to sacrifice your fetch land without Stifle, but right now Joe doesn't have white mana, and so Scalding Tarn can't search for a basic plane, so he probably has to go get a Tundra here, and now he opens himself up to Wasteland.
Right now, interestingly enough, he's going to go ahead and he chooses to get down the counterbalance. He had an option between getting a full value Brainstorm and getting down the counterbalance. He opted for counterbalance. What this does mean is there's cards like Entreat the Angels stuck in his hand.
I mean, he just must feel that this is much more important than anything else right now, is establishing this lock at this stage in the game.
Yeah, it's good. This is we're about to have a big counter war over this. So force pitching days.
Might see Red Blast.
I think that's what the Power Blast is there for.
Yeah. Let's have a battle.
And how hard does Macho want to fight? If he's willing to give up 4 cards for that counterbalance, which he is, then he can have it.
You got to think Joe's happy with that exchange, right?
I mean, it was a 4 for 2. That's pretty good. As all Joe has to do is find a way to answer the batter skull. Like that counterbalance and Pyroblast took care of Macho's entire hand.
Mm-hmm. He did draw a Brainstorm for the turn, so that's a pretty big draw there for Macho.
Oh, wow. And then the Vendilion Click. So if Macho goes for this activation here. Yeah, this old number.
That's on the stack. Here's a Brainstorm. It's a timely Brainstorm.
So he actually gets to, what he can do is he can stop Vendilion Click from doing anything if he puts the Batter Skull as the top card of his deck.
Yep.
Well, then Lossett won't take anything, because if he takes anything, then we put Batter Skull into play.
Yep. One of many sweet Legacy interactions. Macho's going to show his hand. Look, my hand stinks. Now that's awesome. That's awesome. It could have been a game of leveling where Macho's just like, yeah, it's fine. And then he puts Batter Skull into play.
Yeah. You're like, next level.
Yeah.
How sick would have that been?
As it stands, Joe puts it in Treat the Angels on the bottom. He gets to draw another card, so that could have been a complete. That could have been the greatest. Yeah. I've seen you do this before. Thank you. Now, Macho actually didn't use Stoneforge Mystic right away. So, like, if Joe plays a Caracas now,
he never gets to have the Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah. And for 3 we go. Lossett going to put Macho down to 14. Lossett knows that time is of the essence right now, too. You see we're underneath 10 minutes, actually underneath 9 now. He's got to try to close this game out right away. Here's a Brainstorm.
Yeah, that's fine with this.
2.
He gets the Batter Skull. He has to get the Batter Skull back in his hand.
Uh-huh. So I'm going to put some cards back here.
And
Gonna
now
activate.
Activate Mystic. It looks like a pair of Grim Lavamancers left in Macho's hand.
Germ Token incoming. Lossett does have a Source of Plowshares in his hand. Looks like he doesn't have any interest in using it right now, though. And Macho didn't have any interest in sacrificing the Arid Mesa to make it a perfect Brainstorm.
Yeah, well, he likes the Stoneforge Mystic that he's going to draw there.
Looks like in come the Knuckleheads.
All right, so this swings for 5. Remember, Lossett does have Venser Shaper Savant in his hand, so at some point he can choose to bounce the Germ Token.
Now, this is really risky because he's opening himself up to, like, a bunch of things to happening. But if this goes right, he goes bounce the Germ, block your Stoneforge Mystic, destroy you this turn.
All right.
Well, and it goes
that's what happens.
Yeah, it goes absolutely perfect.
I mean, Macho has the replacement Stoneforge Mystic here, so he can reset the Batter Skull under counter magic.
Yeah, but that takes time.
He's
going to sacrifice Arid Mesa now.
We could do it as early as next turn if he gets the 5th land, right?
Yeah.
He has 4 mana in play, so it might not take that long.
It's a really good turn there by Lossett. And I think it's a situation there where he's just like, it's not even, is that like a hopeless situation where it's like, man, I really need this venture to work out, or I'm really dead, or it's a situation where, like, if this works out, man, are you, like, blown out in a big way.
And it looks like Macho is just getting the rest of the board down. Grim Lavamancer, another Grim Lavamancer, and I think Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah. It looks like the case here. Oh, he's actually going to hold off, so.
Well, if he gets the 5th land, he can't just move the Batter Skull to a Grim Lavamancer.
So that's going to start his turn off with the Brainstorm. He does have a fetch land in his hand right now, too. So there's a Tundra added to the hand. A couple of cards there. You see a Jace as well. So now he's got to work his way through some Grim Lavamancers here that Macho has presented. Lossett at a very, very high life total right now, though. And it looks like he's starting to get control of this game. Doesn't have it yet, but he's getting there.
Yeah, the Lavamancers, if Macho gets on tap with them, will make quick work of Lossett's creatures. Lossett does have a Jace, however.
So it looks like he's going to come across here for 5 points of damage. Macho's going to go down to 8. Does Lossett want to drop down Jace? Does he just want to sword something? Looks like he's just going to pass the turn back. Macho's going to draw his card. It's a copy of Spell Pierce. Not bad at this stage in the game.
No, it certainly has the potential to take down a Jace.
Macho's just going to pass the turn back. Lossett's going to sacrifice the Flooded Strand, ask if it's okay. Macho says, yes, I don't have Stifle. So Lossett's going to search out a land. He could probably get a non-basic here if he'd like, or he could just go get a basic Plains, as we're under 6 minutes in the game. Basic Plains probably more important. Even though Macho doesn't have a Wasteland yet, Joe wants to be able to have a stable source of white mana, I believe.
Right. We'll see what he goes for here. We're still on end step here, I believe. This is on Macho's end step.
This is on Macho's end step. The reason I think he's brainstorming now is because I think he's trying to potentially spike a copy of Entreat the Angels. Because if he spikes Entreat the Angels, he is able to just entreat for 3, and then there's like no way Macho can win. But he did draw a Spell Pierce, so it wouldn't be game over. Now it looks like he's going to fire off a Swords to Plowshares.
Go ahead and Swords off a Grim Lavamancer.
This will actually force Macho's hand and actually activate the Lavamancer to kill something. And I think Lossett knows that, yeah, okay, my stuff is going to die. I got you down to 8. That's fine. But one card that he did pick up there, Matthias, was a copy of Wear and Tear. So that Batter Skull is pretty much done for.
Well, if on end step, Macho activates the second Grim Lavamancer to shoot Lossett, then he loses the Batter Skull.
Yeah. And he's going to activate it right now. He says, I don't want to take 2 points of damage.
And this might be a little bit of a misstep here on Macho's side. Well, he still has Spell Pierce for, yeah, he has Spell Pierce, but it's not going to protect it. I think Lossett will take this opportunity to kill the Batter Skull.
He either takes this opportunity to kill Batter Skull or he takes this opportunity to resolve Jace. Either one's actually pretty good here. And he can do it through a Spell Pierce with the Fetch Land and the Mountain available.
Right.
Now, the question, of course, is how does he actually use the Jace in this situation? He could just bounce, of course, the Grim Lavamancer, or he could Fate Seal. Heck, he could even just Brainstorm as your Spell Pierce. Lossett, he does have another land.
Yeah, and I think, remember, what Miracles tries to do is tries to get a Jace on an empty board. So my guess is we'll see the Jace unsummon the Grim Lavamancer here. Lavamancer does an excellent job of keeping a Jace in check.
You see it go back to Macho's hand immediately, so good call on that one. Jace on 2, pass the turn back. Macho draws a card. It's a copy of Delver of Secrets. Looks like he's probably going to deploy some threats. Heck, he could deploy all 3 threats right now.
He could, and we see 1 and 2. We'll see if the third one comes down.
He's sandbagged Stoneforge before.
Yeah, I don't think anything is in, well, not this time. He's going to go ahead and tap all the way out. Now, the danger here is Lossett actually can hard cast a Terminus on this mana.
Or you can just turn it over.
Or Miracle one.
Or you can just turn it over and make it look really easy and still have all of his mana to do whatever he wants on his turn. Had you considered that line of play?
I mean, that one's good because now he can brainstorm and cast whatever he finds.
Yeah, yep. So now he's going to do that. He's actually going to go Fate Seal. He actually wants to stop Macho from doing anything here. So we've got about 3 minutes left. Lossett has to try to win the game now because he's basically got complete control of this game. He's got an active Jace on an empty board.
Now, he doesn't Wear Tear there with Macho tapped out.
I'm fine with that, and the reason is because he wants to actually make it so that Macho actually has to use his mana to return the Batter Skull and then kill it. Gonna take up.
Wait until Macho taps out to recast it and say, oh, with the Germ Trigger on this, you know,
kill
Germ
that
Trigger on the stack, kill the Batter Skull. That was a lot of mana you just paid.
Yeah, that Batter Skull's not gonna do anything. Bounce this back, sure. Invest all of your mana to cast your Batter Skull this turn.
Oh, now he has an uncracked fetch line to get to play this mind game.
Yeah, there's the Wear Tear.
There's the Wear Tear. He wears the Batter Skull.
Is it time to brainstorm? He just needs to find a way to win. He needs to try to find Vendilion Click, a Venser, Entreat.
Or just Jace. Jace
I
wins.
guess, yeah. Jace does typically win. True Name Nemesis is going to go to the bottom.
I always like it when you keep it on top. You should put the True Name Nemesis on top, and then Macho will probably fetch.
You're a maniac.
Oh, come on, just get him to crack the fetch land. You get him to crack the fetch land.
No.
There's no way you put a True Name on top.
What level are you on?
If I just like snap kept it on top, you're like, you didn't give me True Name to go with this, did you? Like, of course not.
What's Joe got here? Snappy. Snapcaster Mage. That's a clock.
Absolutely.
He's going to cast the Pyroblast. Says no to the Brainstorm. Knows that Macho has no cards in his hand. This is a card that allows Lossett to actually win the game. He's going to draw a card. He's got Jace to still use. He's going to start by attacking. Macho's going to go down to 7. Let's also keep in mind here that fetch land that's in play, that actually knocks a full turn off if he sacrifices it. So,
absolutely.
Stoneforge Mystic, what do you want to do with that?
Top.
He says bottom.
I'm keeping everything on top till he cracks the fetch land.
This is
but you have to sell it.
Take a draw, Will Lossett. His Jace is at 10. It might be working its way to 12 here in just a moment. He's got a naked counterbalance. He's looking for a top to go along with that. But for now, we believe he's going to take up. We're not sure. He does have another copy of Jace in his hand. That's why the deliberation here.
I mean, that's the best part about Jace is that he finds more Jace.
There are a lot of good things
It's like
about
Sphinx's
Jace.
Revelation. You know, it draws another copy of itself. It's just like, it's like blue cards that find more, miserable blue cards that find more copies of the same miserable blue card.
Yeah. I will say revving in a rev is a pretty nice feeling.
It's great.
Macho going to go down to 5 here. He's going to sacrifice a headshot. Now he goes down to 4.
You know, you play cards like Elixir so that you can just always keep doing it. It feels so good. You can do it every turn.
It's funny to say what a huge top deck terminus by Joe, but you know that's what miracles do.
It didn't need to be a top deck. That's the thing. He had enough mana to hard cast it. So I think it may have been a little aggressive Macho to play all the creatures into it.
Yeah, but I understand the reason of wanting to play all the creatures because now he can kind of feel the tide turning. He says, okay, I got to close this game out. Here's a Delver. Joe going to trigger the counterbalance. What do we got? That's a 0.
Now, to be fair, if you're Joe and you you keep more cards in your hand and don't cast them, then when Lossett ultimates the Jace, you don't get milled in extra turns. But this game looks like Lossett now on turn 0 with this turn and 2 more can close out the game either through Jace or through damage. It doesn't really seem to matter which.
Yeah, I actually think it's going to be a combination of the two. I think what Joe's probably going to do here is say, okay, bounce your Delver, attack you for 2, put you down to 2, and then what he can do the next turn, he might want to ultimate this, and he actually is going to
ultimate I mean, if he does that, then there's too many cards in Macho's hand to actually mill him in time because he bounced something. Macho could just like draw a card and say go.
Yeah. Okay, so now he's only got 1 card left in his deck, and he can actually play the other Jace, bounce your Delver.
Yeah. Now you bounce your Delver.
Yeah, attack you for 2, and I've got you from both angles.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and that's going to do it. So Joe Lossett, the Miracle Master, is going to win this match in extra turns, as he's been known to do. He moves on to 5-0 here in Dallas, and number 8 on our Season 2 Open Series leaderboard. He's working his way towards some points this weekend.
Yeah.